Geshe, I request you to make the waiting room, give your attention on the waiting room.
Okay.
Because if I touch that, then my screen is going off.
Okay, sir.
So you give them permission.
Okay.
Two people are waiting. Thank you. Welcome everyone. Welcome Tenzin, Lakmala, Nikila, Chimila, and everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome Ilya and Kola. Nice to see you all. Welcome everyone. Gisela, we are good to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. I hope I'm audible. If there's any problem, please let me know. I might get some issues with this. So I welcome you all to the 15th session of Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. And as you all know, today is the last session of these teachings. And as Geshe mentioned last time, we will have this session more interactive. So I welcome you all once again, and join me for the prayers, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth. May I become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Now the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings not be separated from the bliss that is free of suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and hatred towards those near and far. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings not be separated from the bliss that is free of suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and hatred towards those near and far. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings not be separated from the bliss that is free of suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and hatred towards those near and far. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. And Tenzin Lakwala, thank you for being here as a translator. And thank you, Geshe, for being here for these teachings. I hand over to you now. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Mindalinji. Kangen to the Amazon, Tower from Jack, basically to everyone. That didn't under Kazan under the Tendela Junishera. Dicola and it is this gesture to Tuluchi. Chindochons of Benson Tendela Junitis, Conjocoro Sarax. Sasamorodo. Dicola Tuluchi, the gesture and cinema.
So in the previous session, we have discussed about the 12 link-dependent origination. And since this very concept is quite complicated, Geshe said that before we start today's session, he would like to revise a little bit or to revise a little bit about the 12 link dependent origination.
나 땐데 연락 중에 셔도드나 담보 지단게 돈에 마셔도드나 담보나 메리코도 이제 남시 면서 제제도 레바 소바 아니 세파 nemba 시바 제바가 시에서드나 좀 막상 되잖아 되게 저라 다 이제 그상 안데 내 대시에 가서 다 미터직 안도도직 제발라나 담보 레츠사 아니 레드네 때네 아니 저거데 나도 봐도 어 컨데스면 그래서 저러 되게 안데 미직 직왕 세워야 되는데도 제단한테 대시에요 대시에도 전에다 담보데 담보들라 주숨시 담보데 메리코 군달라 말레지사 레디게 아답 담보들라 메리코 도서서 근데 뒤군의 레지사는 남식 되게 된대지 레게 바자데 남식 된대 된도 샤바인 것은다 남식 된대 뭐 된저 아니 유도 숨도 쳤다
So, as we have discussed in the previous class about the 12 link dependent origination, starting from ignorance, then to the deed, the ignorance, then the deed, arising deed, then the name and the form, and then after that the consciousness and the six factorial causes, then leading to uh, the sort of like aging and death, and finally the 12th link that we have talked. And then in the previous class, as Geshe has specially talked about a sort of like a cycle that follows from the ignorance to the entire cycle for us, a specific being, as talking about the three causes, the first cause being the ignorance, and then the impression that it leaves, and then finally manifesting it on the link of the consciousness.
네 대수면 교셔도 되는 다 주티만 주드세나 다 저기 다 기와 마마치라 다 교수님 들어서 교수님 들어서도 되는 다 되네만 저부터는 막 주베라는 컨텐츠에서나 다 빼도시나 약사를 좀 빼도 되다가 저기 빼차샤나 저기 아니 카와지 차샤샤 모바일 폰지 모바일 폰들 라디나다 아니 로드 정말 싸요 저들 심 카드 차단 요다 버제 대저 땅 조조지 요 가능실라 디 안에 감지나는 론도 고자 잡셔야다 다디 디엘라 아니 교수님들 도서다 메리바다 되제 남제 저거서 러시아 다디가 가서 모바일 폰데 먼저 배제 땅 하나 담보대 가르쳐 와서 봐야나 아니 배제 땅 하나 담보대나 아니 고자 쪽으로 고자 대죠 고자 대제 고자 제 제베 줄라 아니 말라바 주네 카와데 감나 맞대 니버들 감나 맞대 라바 주네 당고 고자 제대로 되는다고 배제 땅이나 내가 쇼사서라 다 고자진의 샤샨되고 뭐라 다 맞던 거라 감자 맞던 전에 텔레장 안에 표줬다 relapto 다 되네 뒤쪽들 안에 고자 제 감나 맞대 다 모베데 블록체인이야 카이트 파스워드 내셔라 이 상황만 식다서나 다들 뒤쪽을 안에 숨 조사 다 모델 에마 고자 제 직제 라바 감나 맞대 세 근데 안에 파스워드 록셔버디 마카셰데 안록셰 다숨 조사라 다 숨데 가서나 당분 남시에 때나 어디 숨데 better in the double shine.
So, uh, so this can be the manifestation of the cause into the actual sort of like the realization of this cycle can be understood more sort of clearly with an illustration. So, an illustration or an example of, let's say, there is a mobile phone that we have, and then the mobile phone is charged to its maximum, and there's a SIM card that is active on a plan that has been implanted in that phone. So that particular phase of this example is just like the three causes that has already been placed for the manifestation in the sort of like the cycle that starts with the life. And then the manifestation stage is like now imagine that mobile phone that has been charged to the maximum with the SIM card that has the plan that helps us utilize it is being locked inside a box. So now when we want to utilize that phone, what we do is that the first step is to open the lock. The second step is to bring out that phone from the lock. And then the third thing we see that when we turn on the phone, it will require us to enter the passcode. So entering the passcode becomes the three. So therefore, we should understand that the first three, which is the understanding of the mobile phone being placed in the boxes, the cause that we talked about, and then the later three stage comes into the manifestation of the utilization of the phone, as in the 12 links.
그래서 당한 적에 된다게 마베 분단다 카제 응을라 아니 바자게 된라 감나 루에데 안 독샤가 데다데 레데 네 남시게 된도 아니 바자샤가 집어도 잡으르스 감나 독샤가 다데 슈샤가 절라 티티고 마 다데 죽라 아니 마 카체데 아니 세파세르 세파데게 아니 바자데 쇠야라 아니 쇠다바 나신게 모베데 마 감데 고자쳐 감도 고자체바데 세바세도 다디 지나잖아 세바세디 제바들라고 또 근데 내가 돈에 제게 제바들 지나 제바들 세바 당고 숨도다라 메리파 되체 남지 숨 숨바데네 아니 마 제바를 만도 세바세디 네 고자체바데 너체 다에 디 고자체베 제나 아니 고자체바 담지 되고 말아 세바데 세다바 담메 되고 대주나 아니 람바세디게 바자데 미미야다 아니 쑥치로 따다 누가 터진다라 또야데 감데 나나 카바드 베죠 땅야나 마에 감데 만나 또야데 베죠 땅나 쑥치로 가나 지게 구발 렘바드제 또 구발 렘바드인데 딱 그니 교제 나 대줄라 아니 대줄라 주바들로 주바 시베텐데스 주바 시베텐데스 에다 카바데 마 록체바데 마 시게 베죠 땅 쳐줬어 나 중국에서 다 베죠 땅야나 내가 제데 카바 록체바죠 파스포 록체바 디 체서만에 디 죽라 아니 간저게 가방 남라라니 얘가 따야 나래 가방 따야 나래 내가 이제 그때 뭐다 나 가르치는 상마대 연구라 내가 이제 그다 시베 된데 되게 뭐서 나네 제와 넘버 챙기다 이제도 대줄라 아니 저부 심마 아니 명소다 제제다 레파다 초발라서 봐 가시도 빵들이 막 저부터는 그랬어
So, the phase in which we had the phone charged and then the SIM card being implanted in is the phase where, in the 12th dependent origination, it's the stage where the ignorance, uh, through the action, implants upon the consciousness. So, this is the phase where the three causes are being implanted. And now, in the phase of manifesting, the first action that is in the illustration is to open the lock, is the mind of longing that is taking place. The longing is taking place. And after that, it gets the sort of like it becomes the catalyst to arise the mind of desire. And then further, which is the mind of longing in the link, as we see, it's the eighth link. So if we go according to the order that has been provided in the text, it becomes the eighth link. So then longing becomes sort of like desire, and then after that it amplifies, and then finally the tenth link, that is the manifest birth or the birth take place. And then after the tenth link, then we see that things like name and the name and form, the feelings, the six factors, feelings, and all the rest of the sort of like the link sort of follows this particular link that is the tenth.
어디 제가 지단계 딘데도 제 안에 딘데 연락 중에 들라 지단계 아주 죽다 대우 죽세워 유튜브들라 담보 주들라 메리과 되제 남시 숨제 되네 야 중국에서다 어 저부터 짐바 제야라데 조 무주도부터 차시 무주도부터 저거 다들라 안에 세팔렘바 시바숨 요새 틀라 하마 상마다 저부터
So when we talk about the 12 link dependent origination, we divide them into six causes and sort of like the six products of these causes or the results. The six causes, the first three becoming the ignorance, the action, the impression upon the consciousness. That is the first three actions. And then the direct cause being the longing, the desire, and the manifest birth. And then all the rest of this 12 dependent link dependent origination becomes the cause of these the product of these causes, these six causes. So six causes and six products.
나디 딘데 연락 중이다. 드림 제시도 딘데 제 당고에서 다 드림 만족에 디마르나라 슝데 아마
So this is the sort of like a little bit of a brief revision towards the 12 link dependent origination. And now today we're going to go towards we're going to start our session now.
다디 인제 되네게 다 담보 먼저게 자타 죽숨들에다 드리 자타 죽숨들 레시 자타 죽숨들 자타 죽숨데 다 먼저게 대시보다 팔라미라 제시보다 다 팔라미라 제시도 되네 다 담보 식스 데레시 자베식 양다 따다 초당 저거당 텐다 띵디 나당 레다당 양다 또제 남니 일라제 디니 시버 질레 콤브라티스 오 시팅 츠키레스
So today we're going to start our session with the verse 113, which primarily talks about the path of the eight limbs or the eight limbs path of the Aryas. So Nagarjuna states, perfect view and livelihood with effort, mindfulness and concentration, perfect speech and conduct, perfect thought, the path's eight limbs. To find true peace, please meditate on these.
대시도 다 담보들한테 지금 남주가 되시라 양다가 따와 또빠 마 내제 다 초바 쪼바 템바 딩이스 되시오다는데 디나라 전에 딘데 그림 다 하나 진들입니다 양다가 따와서 된 거다 양다가 따와서 내가 되시오서 양다가 따와를 주잖아 다 아니 시랍도 시랍 잡도 관실라 대응 뭐였네 뭐였네 강 tumba tobege sirap de tawache ya dege tawa thar to bade tongji to ko tawa to sa jana handa ko tawache dinde je handa ko tawas.
So as you can see here, usually when we talk about the eight limbs path, we talk about the sort of like it comes the perfect conduct, perfect speech, and then concentration, and then perfect view. But we see that in this particular order, the first thing that came in is the perfect view. So when we talk about the perfect view, what is a perfect view? So the perfect view sort of like pertains towards the wisdom, and the wisdom that sees the things to be the reality to be what it is rather than the dualistic view that we have. So therefore, when we talk about the perfect view, it pertains to the view of the wisdom pertaining emptiness.
자장가다 양타 방은 저기 주님네 집에 나래 카르다 카르 집에 나야 tawa 양타 거지 만나러 맞추고 dinde chik tawa chik ane chezo tane ne chigwa kacha ma shio chigwas tawa lokwa chik chezo tane droga ina ta digi drebu ten ane lokwa chik yungburi mato tama dina ane drebu yanta ku tungwa ma teso na tawa yanta kwa chik ane chezo tane dila dine ga ane chu nyamle cheba ina are karta karta cheba ina di ane yanta kwa tanda tenpa chi yungburis.
So, uh, so as we go upon the practices that we do, the practice should be primarily held by the perfect view. That every practice should be held by the perfect view, because any practice that is being held by the perfect view is being done with the perfect view will manifest a perfect sort of like meaningful product, be it a practice or be it any actions that we tend to apply ourselves. It should be held or guided with a perfect view, so that at the end of every action that we do, the result becomes meaningful.
대신에 dine yanta pa chobase lebda dina yanta pa chobase ba ta kancho ke choba mongbo jedo dina choba jede ane soso ke kala jeba yanta thombo thangsha shenla gogo tane ane gogo tang luti dinde tane ane choba dichin go ta choba dudupche dinde dine ta pena kuma ta chakwa ta sogo dinde te dinde ke ane 초와대 향다 치고 말 초와대 밀어 보고다 아니 고마자 등산에 나야 다제 나눠다 에 다전에 고마 뭐여라 된절로 소고에다 초와대 초와 향다 치고 말 초와 향다 봐서 소소게 통보 다자 고마자 뭐 많이 마시는 거고다는 많이 봐 소소게다 내가 저거에 나리 가르치는 통보 당샤토한테 제대로 초와 된절로 때문에 중대be 초와대 아니 초와 향다 봐서 텔레 또 같은 거 저거든 안에 저거 양다 보면 뭐 이제네 전제 저거 같은 거 양다 보면 이제 저거 같은 거 먼저 뭐한테 방구에 적혀 좀 그랬어.
So the second one is called the perfect livelihood. So when we talk about perfect livelihood, it is a livelihood that we usually call a honest living. It's a sort of like a livelihood that comes with genuine effort, and all the profit that is made is through one's genuine effort, rather than practicing things like stealing or robbing people. Or in this day and age, we have something called cyber theft. So all of these things, which are not pertaining to the ethical or moral values of a livelihood, these are known as imperfect or not a perfect livelihood, but rather the type of livelihood where one is putting a genuine effort and then they're enjoying the sort of like this, enjoying the sort of harvest of their own labor is known as a perfect livelihood. And everything which is opposite to this, such as stealing, such as robbing people, such as fooling others to gain profit, are known as the imperfect or not a perfect livelihood.
근데 양다 봐 준비 세대다. 다 최년에 제발에 땅 가서 딩을래 뭐 쉬잖아. 준비 세대 같이 뭐 쉬어랬어. 싫어봐 야 보시체. 안전한 좀 양다 봐 저와도 딩고였네요. 저와도 준비도 맞아 봐이나. 소소게 데부터 트립도 말했어. 다 준비 세대 뺏겠죠. 준비 최배 중요하지. 윤하지 땡 거서는 무튼 드린 찍고 싶어. 써니는 요시는 거 말. 준비 세대 무튼이 땡 거서 같이 뭐. 이 준비 양다 가지고 그랬어.
And so the third is the perfect effort. So, whenever we try to apply ourselves in any type of practice, when we try to apply ourselves in any sort of action, it should not only be held by an intention, but followed by effort. So so Nagarjuna states the perfect effort. So what does a perfect effort mean? It means an effort that is in a continuum, that is consistent, not being not being something that happens a certain day and it's not there at other times, but something that is there throughout the practice consistently. So therefore, consistent effort is known as the perfect effort.
네 줄은 안에 템바스들라 템바양 다. 다디 전류 여바다 아니 시럽이하고 요나야 템바데 약고 매와이나 안테 템바 젠 가라가라 제고 여바데 가라 제고 여바다 매와 된저 상마 템바 나나 양다 거 매와이나 아니 데 템바 바 메셈바이나 대왕게 아니 뭐 투쇼도 그래서 나 템바데 캐쳐 마셔 버렸다 템바 양다 봐 여바 미국 다가봐도 검다 최년에 제가 있나 템바 니 버셔 봤어데 항상 캐쳐 버렸어.
So the fourth one is perfect mindfulness. Even though a particular action may be held by a wisdom, and then it may have a consistent sort of effort, someone might put consistent effort, but if they are not mindful about the actions that they do, they are unable to manifest the desired result, the perfect result. So even if someone is applying themselves into an action that may be held by wisdom, and then they are putting consistent sort of effort in this, they should also be very mindful about what they are doing. So, especially in a sort of practice like the practice of dharma, the practice of meditation, one should have perfect mindfulness or be very mindful of each and every observation and experience they have in that particular practice. So, this is perfect mindfulness.
근데 내가 생각이 네 줄라 데려다 땡이지 양다 봐 땡이지 땡이지 쌤 제철을 내가 미국 갔다 가다 시작하는 소소를 그놈 그 그냥 난데 미국 간대지도 쌤 시작하나 쌤 다가랑 네트워크 네 안에 매와이나 양 삼로드 가사칼라 파 쇼를 네 내가 이나데 취해체게나 가이나 네 삼로드 대가나 맨 매dom나 내가 되나 가래나 곧 타초바다 콩조가 연구 말 그래서 나 땡이 됐어야 되나 좀 개점 보시고
And so the fifth one is perfect concentration. To have a single pointed mind, a mind that focuses on the target of meditation or concentration. So the perfect concentration means a mind that is unmoving from the point of concentration, to develop a sort of a mind that is able to focus on the target and fully focus on the target of the meditative absorption. So to have a unwavering mind, because if one doesn't have a firm concentration or a single pointed mind, what is that the focus of concentration wavers. Their mind moves from the target, and many different appearances or many different minds comes to play that makes the object of concentration very vague. So therefore, it's important to have a perfect concentration.
니줄라 다 양답에 나서더라도 땅한답에 나서도 땅한 저기 계좌시에 가서 미션아 계좌시에 가서 아니 직접다 생활다 어떤데 맞아 봐 내가 잠벽권에 씹어 그 셰도 때문에 어 제가 다가는 이제 가서 나 주보다 된데 권에 셰대바이나 아니 표저 미든 줄라 아니 디 셈나는 콘도 제를 쏘거든 표저 미드 그 통화 잠지 소소 셈발 나오다 해서 어 근데 이제 나 잠벽권에 셰대 캐치 뭐 쇼르스다 직접다 된대 저번에 소소 저한테는 소소에는 내가 뭐 사셔버려. 그저 통나래 해버려. 내가 잠배 보내 시거다. 내가 그셔도 때문에 보내 시거든. 계속 뭐 양다가 나서.
And the next one is the perfect speech. So a perfect speech refers to a mindful and a gentle sort of way of speaking, to speak gently to someone and with compassion, rather than using harsh words or to speak in a vulgar language that may hurt someone's sentiment, and that by repeated action towards them in this manner can also lead for them to feel to feel uh, to feel like anger towards the person who is doing this particular, who using particular harsh language or vulgar sort of language that they are doing. And then at a point to see the person who is using these language to be repugnant and wanting to refute them, on not wanting to be in their vicinity. So therefore, even while trying to explain something to someone or trying to advise someone, it is always important to understand that it should be done in a gentle manner with compassion. So to speak to someone in a gentle manner with compassion is the perfect speech.
이제 내 레지 양답에 레지 탔어더라도 레지 탔어도 다 룡아지 레트도 룡아지 레 룡아지 줄람 가다 잡아 있나요? 디 아니 양답 뭐다 시간 몇 봤다. 딱 봐도 아니 그런 멤버군에 아니 시간 몇 배게 룡아게 자주 어디에 매바데 아니 양답에 레서 그래서 탐자나 소소 그런다 아니 마시 몽배왕게 아니 룡아 자주 시간 몇 봤다 연구했어. 다들 믹서레스 디 많이 바꾸노 멤버군에 나네 룡아지 군에 시간 몇 배게 아니 레지 줘라 레 네베게 아니 용하게 잡아대 된저 안에 도박에 아니 시는 맨데가 용하게 니저야고 dombe게 레지라 양답에 레지 다스
So the perfect conduct. So when we talk about perfect conduct, it means to sort of like restrict oneself, to conduct one's body, mind, and speech in a way that they restrict themselves from following certain non-virtuous actions. So when we talk about non-virtuous actions, these are actions which are intended to harm others, either they be physical or mental. So therefore, to restrict those actions or to conduct one's body, mind, and speech in a way that they do not let themselves to do things that harms others intentionally. Sometimes we may do some actions that might indirectly, without our knowledge, harm other people. Those kind of actions are sort of like a special case that we can count them to be something that is not done with an intention. But here, when we say conduct, we talk about actions that are particularly done with the intention to harm others. So, therefore, perfect conduct is the restriction of the body, mind, and speech towards not doing actions that harms others with intention.
아 타마디디레도 양답을 똑바세 어디나라 perfect thought la ta mabu de la perfect intention de golong ro chi ta kan zhe ge yan da be tok pa le de golong ro xie de golong xie de zhen da kan zhe ge de da da kan zhe ge de sherap kompare de si temba dingi de la so ba ten zo mabu de kon ba so golong khare jo 근데 nga ko ne ge ya ko xie la so pa ta ne le ko ne ya ko che ba de la golong yang da ko 그놈 한다고. 그놈 랍촌나 근데 신배 그네로 사과도 참 영제 그네로 딘데게 그놈은 양다고 그놈 상버직 그네다 먼저 룽하게 이제 갔다 같이 봐나 보면 잡아야 가나 싫었고 막 템바다 띵이들 속다 딘데 같이 잡아나 되게 근데 양다고 채라 그놈 캐좀 쉬워. 그놈 양다고 그네나데 따딘데 냠내 잡아야나래 펜셈 잡아야나 같이 봐더라 그놈스 캐좀 쉬어 되네 양다고 해 똑바서 그놈 아니 랍션의 신배 아과도 신배 매주나 제는 맨날 선배 선바치 그거는 치고 어떻게 좀
And finally, it is the perfect thought. So, Geshe said that in many of the translation, it has been translated as perfect intention. And then he said that it points more towards the understanding of this particular part as perfect intention. Because every action that we do, be it meditation on wisdom, be it having a single pointed meditation, the target of focus, it is done with a particular intention. And so to arise that particular intention is what leads to perfect conduct and all of the rest of the sort of like the path that we are talking. So therefore, the sort of like the fundamentals or the core becomes the perfect intention. Even in the conduct of the three gates, that is the body, speech, and mind, it should be with an intention that I may not harm that other person. And so, even when we are trying to arise the mind of the altruistic mind, the mind that is to serve others, benefit others, it is also done with the intention. So, therefore, whenever we could, we should think about these things. And then, even though we may not be able to arise an altruistic mind to service to the others, we might at least arise a mind that tells us that we should not harm others. So therefore, that is what we call a perfect intention.
되잖아 대줄은 tem바니 샤 같이 팔라미라 제데 다 셔레나 다파 되와이나 라바숨이난 되르소 라바숨 다 라바숨이 당보된 시랍질 라벤나라 양다베 따와다 똑바니 시랍질 라바체 양다베 아니 초바 아니 양다베게 레지다 어 양다베 초바 양다베 레지다 양다베디 지금 어쩌봐 됐으면 아니 디난 되었다 디디 양다베 양다베 가 소리 양다베 가 양다베 레지다 양다베 초바 숨디 아니 수림질 나와 양다베 가 양다베 레지다 양다베 초바 숨디 안 숨질 레벨 나는 두바세 아니 양다베 템바다 양다베 띵이 되니 띵이 된 나와라 두바세 양다베 준비 있어야 돼 아니 나와 숨겨라 봐 그래서 this 반란이 라 제디 바 되셔와이나 나와 숨는 되고
So even these sort of eight limbs path, when we try to think about a more concise in a more concise way, we understand that all of these three are included in the three fundamental practice, the practice of wisdom, the practice of discipline, or vinaya, or the practice of concentration, in which the practice, the perfect view and the perfect intention are included in the practice of wisdom. The perfect speech, the perfect conduct, and perfect effort is included in the perfect speech, the perfect conduct, and the perfect effort.
W
The 저기 ngache
나제
아니
나제
no,
소화제 아니 레지타 숨디 준비 수림나
the perfect speech, the perfect livelihood, and the perfect conduct are included in the practice, the fundamental practice of discipline or Vinaya. And then finally, the perfect concentration and perfect mindfulness comes in the practice of concentration. And the perfect effort is something that is pervasive to all these three fundamental practices.
디 나와서면 되도제 어때네 어딜라 디디레도다 자다 줍시들라 게데 둥아 세바 셰지바세 테네 디 군주 어 자체데스 디고번에 타발라거데 타바 톱지 팔랑이라 제데 팔랑이라 되게 라스 다데기 디레다 하세 시딩 60제
So the verse 114, Nagarjuna states, to take birth is to suffer, and to crave is its immense and universal source. Make craving cease, and freedom will be yours. To achieve that, take the eightfold noble path.
디 가르치 시험도 송도잖아 다 먼저 되게 담보 둥아 아니 코발티 둥아 뭐지 둥아 되게 총사대 잡아도 야자와는 군중 아니 내년이 나 된전이 코발라 타발라 아니 타파트베 열에 타레 타파 열에서 요서나 타파티 톱지기 가려서나 톱지기들 남세래 남 가려서나 팔남이라 제대로 남제 쪽 된데도 쏘시오다
So this particularly talks about the sort of like the source of our rebirth in the samsara, that the sort of like the cause or the nature of samsara being of the suffering, and it being originated by the origin of suffering. And then the origin of suffering itself comes from afflicted mind and our sort of like afflicted actions. And then to be free from these afflicted mind and afflicted actions, non-virtuous actions, is the sort of like the thing that liberates us from the binds of the samsara.
근데 제가 전에 자다 정하더라도 자다 정하대 지금 데려다 대다라 파파 템포 시부다스 타바지라 따도 좀 바지스 다디 안에 지단 게다 팔라메라 제셔도 되네 팔라메라 젤 뒤나 템바 실바 뒤바 템바 시기 남내라 파뒤 템바 시기 냠데 두군다 안에 방자다 고람니 톱자세 어디 방랑 남자데 안에 시행거데 어 시험 받쳐봐라 안에 좀 받쳐봐라 식당 문 일이 되는데 나 때문에 significantly all my transaction budget conduct.
So verse 115, for you to see the same Four Noble Truth, you must strive hard to practice constantly. So here, what Nagarjuna has stated is that he has sort of like sort of stated the perspective of the eight limbs practice, the eight limbs noble path, into the practice of the Four Noble Truth. And in the Four Noble Truth, we have the suffering, the origin of the suffering or the source of suffering. Then we have the cessation, and then we have the path, in which the first two becomes the object of refutation or the object of abandonment, and the second two becomes the object of attainment. So here, in the first two lines, as we see, it talks about the practice of the Four Noble Truth, in particularly talking about how to strive hard in the practice, constantly practicing in abandoning the object of refutation or object of abandoning the object that must be abandoned, that is the suffering and the cause of suffering. And the next two line that Nagarjuna has stated has a different meaning or understanding.
단다게 정하게 자다 정하게 식탐은 니다 주중이 냠보셔도 자다 주중이 다디 제 시딩스 데르 빠나 빠네 침반남 지장스 집에 뉴몽 초보 레게디스 냥다 중의 기바 대다장스 내래 파바 마도 로도신스 서른 라든 말라 대다 Mas nyamo rakwa soso kibu las. Kibu beso.
So the last two line of the verse 115 and the verse 116 are has to come together as they tend to state the same meaning. So we just take the last two line of the 15th verse and then we add it to the 16th verse. And Nagarjuna states, even worldly men with fortune in their laps, through knowledge cross that river troubled states, and even those who realized the truth did not fall from the heavens nor emerge like crops of corn from earth's dark depths, but once were ruled by kleshas and were ordinary men.
나 대에 근데 송자 다 야부터 저 삼만나 고문도 저게. 저랑 지난 김바레스. 제 김바제. 아니 마서 저랑 자보레스. 저랑 자보인 무슨 저랑 나다 저 완다 안다 너 농절라서 가도 자 차당지. 어 정말 여대 버저레스. 신라면 매고 정말 여대 버저레스. 내 마서 다 저랑 김바레스. 김베 때네 김바레스. 나 김베 때는 안에 타파토벨라서 보다 상계 고모도 했는데 열에서 집었다나 김바게 안 타파토벨스. 그래서 배저 잡아이나 김백에 되는 여초에 남자님 배저 잡아나 김백 되는 타버트 배열에서 타버트에다 탐제 좀 톱세야 돼 소소 배저 잡아이나 영원대 봐지 김바다 랍중술에 잡아줘 놨어 된 마인백에 인도 고대바이나 남네 그 잡아 파워나 이제 나산네 그 지신다 메탈로서 그 잡아 되는 난신 게요 말이야 소소 배저 잡아이나 수기나 톱톱을 했어요 저래
So this particular verse, as you see, was said to King Gautamiputra by Nagarjuna. He said, "O King Gautamiputra, if we look at your worldly status, you are someone who has all the wealth, all the wealth and consumption that you can desire of, that you have everything that a worldly person might desire. But at the end, you are in the term, you are a layperson. And then, if you ask me whether a layperson can attain liberation or not, it is the fact that a layperson, with their effort, can definitely attain liberation. For liberation, there is no distinction, there is no discrimination of an ordained and an ordained and a layperson. For those who are able to put up sufficient effort and sufficient work towards the liberation, even if they may be a layperson, they can attain the same fruit of liberation. Given the understanding that one should put sort of like effort in attaining that liberation. For liberation is not something like a rain or the crops that you wait to emerge. It is not a rain that you wait to fall or crops that you wait to emerge from the ground. It is something that you must put yourself into the application and effort to attain for oneself.
이제 다들 자다 줍든데래도 자다 줍든데 어 년단테라 모두 서치세스 펜베당아 전부 딜라데스 최지 투투 되지 좀 되지 때문에 최지 잡아 나가스면서 시댕스들이
So now the verse 117, Nagarjuna states, O fearless one, what need to tell you more? For here's the counsel that will truly help. The vital point is tame your mind, for mind's the root of dharma. So the Buddha said.
되게 지당당아 줄랑시라시라 줄랑 잡아를 줄랑 잡고서 제고서 되게요 말이지 당에 미사다 지나 다 단도 것도 쉬어도 미사시라 나고 있으면 이나야 하라고 하고 있는 것이 이나 좀 되대 송영 엄마한테 가르잖아 최초가 되게 조금 엄마한테 심 되더래 다 최에 잡아대 안돼 similar to was 저 냠내셔서 독서동 엄마한테 similar to was 쌤데 되봐야나 최초가 되네 다다 차요래서 쌤데 매되나 저 가다 잖아요 아니 배야요 말했어 저거데 쌤 두고 그래서
So in this verse, Nagarjuna states, O fearless one, though there need not, he says that though there need not be any more elaboration for you. But Buddha, but still let me bring out this thing that the Buddha said that the essence of the practice of dharma is to tame one's mind, that this is the very essence or the heart of all practice of dharma. That if one is able to tame their mind, one is able to practice the entire dharma. And if one is unable to tame their mind, even if they apply to many different practices of dharma, all of those practices becomes essenceless. So therefore, this is the meaning of the verse 117.
네 원래랑 최고다. 저는 다 먹었지. 저도 최초 너무 먹었지. 배자 다니소라. 다 쌤들 맞으려나 되는데 그래. 뭐 최초버지 배자 때문에 탭시고 좀 아니 개발 명도가 써보다. 다시 저버지 중앙에는 쌤들 앉아 대봐야나. 다티 펜도 뒤에 중앙에 나 최내 시에 그거 뭐 맞게 배웠나. 쌤이 저걸 배웠나. 옛날 생에 전년계제나 땅을 줘 되는데 이제 남았는데 이제 되는데 저희 근데 다 고스티네 뭐 제 리트리트네 뭐 쇼저 저희나 삼로드 담보도 받아 된다 또 집부터 된다 보이나 다들 되게 버자도 샤이를 뭐다 대응 엄마게다 전에 시작하게 다다 대응 말 소소 다제세는 뭐 땅가 되는 게만 담보 고주면 된다 봐도 삼로를 주가 가자 또 삼로 냠바도 용 가자 또 삼로 야가 줘도 가야지 가자 또 다제세네 내가 들라되네 소소에 최념에 잡아서 소소에 텐데 때문에 제 맞아야 돼 양생한테 다제세 계속 말했어 최 독자들 셈도
So this is the actuality. This is the fact that the taming the mind is the essence of all practices. So even if so let us take an example of our own lives, where we apply ourselves in the practice of dharma, and then by saying the practice of dharma, we tend to apply ourselves in the study of the text. Then we study many texts, we go and then we take sort of refuge to many gurus, teachers. We take many retreats. We go for many retreats and we take many courses. But at the end of the day, it comes to whether we have tamed our mind or not, because that is the essence of the practice. Because at the end of the day, it's important to sit down and introspect and analyze our own mind to see what changes has come to our mind after taking up these sort of understanding and learning, whether we if there is a difference in the way we are perceiving things, if there is a difference in the amount of affliction that is arising in our mind. And once we see that there is indeed a sort of like a change in our mind, this is when we can say that we have applied ourselves into the practice. Otherwise, simply studying the text, going for many courses, going for retreat may have little benefit. And then they may be an impression on our consciousness, but they still may not be considered the essential practice of the dharma.
대줄라 자다 접게 그래도 자다 접게 돼 튜라 되게 남바 칸라데스 대박에 놓기자 디와 카르스 딜라 칸치 쳬바 뭐버데스 연데 템베 고저 튼데즈스 시딩 식데스
So, verse 118, it's hard enough for monks to follow perfectly all these instructions that I have given you. Yet practice excellence, the very part of one of these, and give your life its sense.
네 가르쳐서는 더 지난 저런 다 시딩데 마 저런 저거 저런 마 데스 어 뭐를 봤송요스 되게 전다 안에 차상하지 딱저런 게 남녀치 카포르스 베사전은 다 집안 많이 봐 rab도 중고 된저야 안에 차상한 남녀치도 카포르스 대배장 안에 저거저런 짐바때는 선다 야합 정도 같은 데서 나 틀라면 뭐 있듯이 카포르스 이나야 딘나나 카르토 치다 소저게 박저 적저 대체 난 내가 다 칸다 뛰네 어디 칸토버지 남녀치고 되네 제tom나 다가란 데그레서 된데
So this verse states that Nagarjuna stated to King Gautamiputra, technically speaking, you have now received the entirety of the teaching of this letter to a friend that I have given you in this teaching. But seeing how your life and the mundane life that you live, how all the things that you have to do in your life, that is to administer the kingdom, to rule a kingdom, the schedule that you have that is very busy, for you have to tend to the conventionality. It is something that is very difficult for even a monk to follow. But still, Nagarjuna advises to King Gautamiputra to take up this particular understanding and practice to the best of his ability, to everything that he can from this practice that has been passed down from this particular teaching to him.
다 되네 죽들만 다 죽이 된저 좀에 다 죽이 개방하고 소리 그래서 다 시팅스 그래 군제 개방군나 이랑신 니진데 빠져봐 남수면 산게 니도 길에 용원에서 대 식숨되게 다소적을 용한 예수님의 군나 사배 개베서 같은 전에 저 산제가 도배쳤다 아니 뭐 받쳐 버렸어요.
So now, from this, the verse 119, we see that now this is dedication, in which Nagarjuna states the first three lines, rejoicing in the virtuous deeds of all, now dedicate your three good kinds of acts to all that they may come to Buddhahood. So in this verse, these three lines, Nagarjuna states all of the sort of virtuous deed that they have performed and the more merits that they have accumulated from the acts from the body, speech, and mind, may that be dedicated to the ultimate attainment of the complete enlightenment or the Buddhahood.
네, 다 접제게 아마도 죽고대 nama ta dire sto ta manje ke ba mo ta res tene ge ba phong bo di chus ke ba pa tu me ba ami je de kun ji ne do phong ze ne pa ba che ne se mo chu ba is ke ba nyam da ma bo che son des chung ne na ga de ja ke dang nam se des ke dang nam se de le tik ti pa tu chi kres da de ka su na na ja ba de ko ma lu du ma sun ja ba de chu tam ba nyam su ne ne ba la ten ne ke ba pa tu na sa sha res 그거 봐도 내가 싸워 되게 아니 마음 받아 아니 되게 진짜 하다 매 공부 톱네 아니 어 그거 심지 된체게 바빠 전에서 난신게 다들 타야겠디 그거 싸워도 것도 마서 센다 마서 답이었어 근데 도시랬어
So from the last line of the verse 119 to the end of the verse 120, then by this mass of virtuous deeds may you, in boundless lives, in worlds of gods and men, be master of the yoga of all existence, of all excellence, and like sublime Chinrizik, may you work to guide the many feeble, stricken souls. So in this particular statement, Nagarjuna states, so by the understanding and study and the practice of this particular teaching, the enormous, unimaginable amount of merits that will be accumulated, may these merits be dedicated so that from many countless lives that you may take thereafter in the worlds of the gods and the man, that you may apply yourself into the practice of this teaching, and that may at the end may you become as the sublime Chenrezig and cultivate the seed for your rebirth to the service of those who are feeble and stricken towards the path of liberation.
근데 막 이게 되지 되래도 세도 좀 산재 신도 좀 되대 여봐 내가 잡아 진감지 공복고도 빠도 매버서 서대 타르토나 안에 되게 받아볼 때는데 제가 여봐 맨날 신기다 지금 되지 가서 왔다 산재 공부 터비 어딘데 아니 저럴 때 버렸어 뭐가 버렸어 어딘데도 산재 대바진도 된다고 뭐 여봐 맨날 신기다 심지 된대 어딘데 안에 집에 소바토는 맞던 거다네 근데 텐션은 거든 버튼을 거든 봐 어딘데 제도다 뭐 같이 볼수 있어
So the verse 121, and thus may you take many rebirths and dispel all ills, old age, desire, and hatred in a perfect Buddha field. May you have infinite life as a protector of the world, like Buddha Amitabha, sublime Lord of boundless light. So here in this particular verse, Nagarjuna states that by the dedication of the merits accumulated here, may you become like the fearless Amitabha, and then may you be able to guide the lost and the ones who are without a path into the path of attaining enlightenment until the very end of the samsara itself.
이제 다들 니슈 전이다 자신들에 다 니슈 전이 들으서 시럽 수림 동중 라제 드마메스 타요 난가타네 사팅 제제네스 살람미다 투리 하미 나중조스 대다가가 대바라 라또 시제데스 녀몽 냠다 심제 소직단스 집에 치바시데 제벤 왕분 제대 레데 민tam 실라 메템바스 메텐 농베 메망 콤방 니버체스 시팅 섹터 아멘
So, verse 122 and 123. And springing from your wisdom, discipline, and bounty, may your fame and stainless virtue spread throughout the God's realm in the sky and on the earth, and may you firmly quell the carefree ways of gods and men whose sole delight and joy in pretty girls. And once you have reached the mighty Buddha state, removing fear and birth and death for hosts of stricken and afflicted soul, then let mere name be stilled beyond the world and reach the never changing level, free from fear that knows no wrong.
되게 개발자가 싸워라 때는 아니 저도 못한다고 되게 아니 시럽 좀 써봐다 아니 수림다 아니 짐바라 써봐 좀 써봐 때는 되게 때는 아니 멍바나 아니 된대 컴바토네 된대 대발 런체 된대 스토리스 진 된대 용거스 된대 신게 아니 아 카마데나 아니 데 개발자가 때는 아니 동아 탐제 때는 아니 산제 컴바토리 데이지도 아니 개발치고레스 어디레스
So this two line states that by the practice of this teaching, uh, you will arise a boundless wisdom, and you will go into the practice of discipline. And through these emergence or arising of boundless wisdom and practice of discipline, first you will attain the higher rebirth of the gods and the men. And then as you apply yourself uh, further into the teaching by removing the fear, you will be free from the cycle of the birth and death, and finally attain the mighty state of the fearless one or the Buddha.
이제 다 대주되나 아니 시베 띵이 글로 무섭지스 저 저거 대주 상벌고 조소스 되게 주야 되는 자가 금보 사벤 벤데다다 쇼ン제 주제에 넣자가 벤데 패색지 조사 벽이 선택된 자가 주여줘라 디레스는 자가 금보지다 안페 넣자가 아니 벤데 패색 되는 얘기 주저래서 어디 좀
So the conclusion. This completes the letter to a friend written by Sublime Master Nagarjuna to friend King Surabindra bin Badra. Uh, it was translated, corrected, and authenticated by the learned Indian abbot Sarva Gyanananda Nandeva and the great reviser and translator Venerable Balzik. So this is the end of the text.
저기 다 남주 템플레이트 소도 제가 고 당번에 직직 로치고 다 템플레이트 소도 데링 가지고 될 로션이라 잠바 슌도 주보다 차차로 연대 간식 게 다겠니스 데바라시베 손에 예좀베 손남 둘레 팍베 양대다 중세 대직 최지 셈버 레스
So, as a sign of auspiciousness, usually what we do is that we tend to read the first verse of the text when we have finished the entire text. So, Geshe has read the first verse. So, homage to the gentle and glorious youth Manju Koshaya. Manju Gosha, listen now to these few lines of noble song that I have composed for those with many virtues fit for good, to help them yearn for merit springing from the sacred words of He who's gone to bliss.
이제 다 된다 당한 저기 들어되게 다 시den게 전이 제조라 다 드린 차송스 아니 지 먼저 다들 녀세 잡을 때네 아니 개발 납치 뭐 사요 사도 전에다 디 아니 먼저 타마타마 되는 거죠 뭐가 어떻게 좀 버렸어 그런 상부지 군에 아니 녀열에 생계 경우는 그런 상부 군에 시에도 전에 개발 납치 뭐 사요 가지 아니 저 몇고 그랬어 그래서 개발 납치 뭐 되게 다 저가 산재가 아니 뭐가 채대 이렇게 좀 뭐지 내가 이제 아니 근데 저런도 들려야 돼 아니 저당 니네제 저번에 인터넷 제수랑 효율스
So, Geshe said, now this marks the end of our sessions of the teaching of Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. And despite every one of you who have participated here, despite of your very busy and tight schedule, you have taken up this time of this time to participate in this session, and for which it does not have to even mention that a great amount of merits have been accumulated. And it's very important in every practice at the very end that these merits that have been accumulated should be dedicated for the attainment of the ultimate attainment of enlightenment. And so Geshe said that he is rejoicing in this very opportunity to teach and listen, that we have been participating in these sessions, and that he rejoices in everyone taking time out of their tight schedule to come here, to sit down, and then to dedicate a part of their life towards this particular practice.
그래서 당한 저 니제 잡았는데 개발 납치 뭐 효사 이거 세워 효율스 맞아요 먼저 다 개발만 내지 관계네 근데 주니제 제 코드 세트를 두고라 뒤에 안에 생각 뭐 거기나 내지 관계네 총대 맞아요 근데 대선다 다네 먼저 주니제 잡았을 때네 개발 납치 뭐 효사네 뭐보다 아니 레다 뭐는 되게 되고 땡사고 쉬고지 샤네네 뭐 되게 템데다 되게 쉬워지다 중요하다 소소소 상당한 재수는 제 내도です
So this opportunity to teach and to listen to the teachings is something that has been attained by a certain karma that has been sown many, many lifetimes past by every one of us to have gathered here. And that this particular karma that we are cultivating now is forming a very profound and intricate karmic connection within all of us. And it is very apparent that the amount of immeasurable great merits that we have accumulated in participating in this particular sessions that we have done. And so, therefore, it is very important to dedicate them and to understand that there have been a very profound and a deep karmic connection that has been established here. And every one of you should rejoice in being able to participate in these sessions.
나 디제 딱 가장 먼저 딱 뒤버 되는 거 싶었어. 나 뒤버들 담아 맞아 거는 계산에만 원하실 것 같이 뒤버지 다 되게 내는데 맞아. 이게 나와나데 타제 나는데 강한테 총을 말해. 다 되게 내는데 지단계 뒤버들 되는 인삼서 가서는 근데 연락 중에 마지막 돈에 시에 되는 좀 아니 가 시에 되지 그러면도 대지는 대신 강도 쉬거든. 다 담고 숨제 아니 조숨도 조라 다 아니 제반에 제바 그거 죽었는데 무주도 무주도 잘하다 어디 접촉 줄라다 되잖아 무주란다 말아 편제 교들라 숨 아니 말해봐 안 되지 남시제 아니 접촉 교들라 아니 세팔 렘바시 바숨 딘데 렘바시제 아니 딘데 데부들라 아니 데부 툭대 딘데시 직제 지방에 수 힘받대 땅 저기 계산 저기 진다 진 and the double share has another every metro power 이게 아니 이제 미나야 에브리가 기타 메릭 토지 총시 버리스 하자는 거기 릭제나나티 요레라라 다디 안에 디나시는 먼저 그때 어 개방하면 되네 레모 바자 뭐 신나게 되네 요한테 아니 직 도미넌트를 컨트롤해서 직 최소 도미넌트를 미사들을 라고 말했다 시간 나가들라 아니 어 수요 담예죠. 수요 담예 등한 저기 남시에 때나 박자 개와단 몇 개월 박자 당도 먹어요. 다 시달라가 타마텔라 안에 개백에 수요다 봐야 되는지다. 몇 개월 쓰면 수요다 봐야 아니 내손 제지. 어딘데 도지. reis wo de kesan tu ba de ne de to ji pa de sik chen sa wa cha de de
So, uh, so now before we start our question answer session, Geshe said that he would like to answer the previous question that was asked. And so it was primarily on the question of the order of the 12 link dependent origination, saying that the order that has been stated in the text and the one that Geshe has explained are quite different. And that this comes with the concept, the understanding of the six causes and the six products. So the link in which Geshe has elaborated the 12 link dependent ordination or explained the order that he has explained is the order that primarily focuses on the six causes and the six product. The first three being the ignorance, the action, and the impression on the consciousness, and then the manifest cause, which are the craving, the longing, and the manifest birth, which is the eighth, the ninth, and 10th. And this is done so that the 12 link dependent origination could be explained in the concept of the six causes and the six product. And then the other question that was asked, like when Geshe talked about the DNA, being able to express them, the gene expression that we call it in the biology or the biology, the genetics probably, in which we say that the gene express themselves in accordance to the law of dominance put forth by the Mendel. So, in which the dominant gene expresses itself in the offspring rather than the recessive genes. But then, in certain time, what happens is that there's something that is also called a hidden genes. So, a gene that may manifest if all the circumstances are met, it may manifest, saying that even though a parent may be Asian, both parent may be Asian, their lineage may have an African sort of like a ancestry. And then if a particular circumstance come together in the expression of that gene, it may be possible that the offspring or the baby may have an African sort of like features. It is possible. And so the question was either on the particular impression upon the death, the question was whether the sort of like the intention upon the death is it dominant because it decides the next lifetime. So the answer to it is that yes, during it doesn't have the understanding. It does not pertain to the understanding of dominant or recessive. It's just that during the time of death, if one is able to manifest their intention into a virtuous intention, then they take that is said that upon a consciousness, which is the continuum stream of countless life that has been from the very beginning, the beginningless beginning, has infinite amount of impressions, and which impressions will manifest into the birth will depend on the intention upon death. So when the time of death will come, if one have an intention of virtuous intention, amongst all of these infinite sort of impression, the virtuous impression will manifest into a higher rebirth. If they will have a non-virtuous intention, then amongst all the infinite impressions, the non-virtuous impression will manifest and then it will manifest into a lower rebirth. So Geshe said that he hopes that this clarifies the answer.
근데 이제 일단 드린 그냥 뒤에 싸워 된대 다 단단 먼저 드린 봐도 주니어 제바들라 다저 데 가르시어서는 다 독도도 막 주변에 다 먼저 그때 디오삼들 남들은 받을 시 안에 코바당 내송게 둥아 나서 뭐 보지 요때 봤어 된저 여야라 여버때 봤대 뭐 했네 쫓아대 코바네 거제와 이나냐 함미 다 살아있는 시고요서 이나 딜레야 둥아 요 딜레 타야란 탑에 남들라는데 남마에 남자들 시에래 당연히 지금에 덴바시 남자거나 제베네 남제 덴바시도 되네 단다 공도 시어봤네 지금에 발람해라게 된저다 라바숨 된저게 냠nen데 제발 때네 아니 다른 거죠 타포토게 있어 어딘데 남자 망고 시에라 된저잖아 아니 독도도 그때 막 쉬어야는다 어딘데게 어 덴바시 남자들 막 시에다는데 맨다 망베지고나 시에요 어디 냠 남들 시에도 받아냐 남 무슨 남ngay 보내 시에도 야 발람이 라제 좀 보내죠 전다 뭐 도도 버쳐봐나 동아도 시어버체 근데 동아 봐마죠 봐와나 동아 주시오 군중제 아니 대 군중 봐 봐봐요 고바 탑지가 탑남 어디 남들 드베라 아니 저저게 드베 토어쳐봐라 아니 어다 템바다 땡이도 싫어서 쏘고 어떤저 남자 먹어지나 아니 냠슬 랭버스 어떤데 남자 쏘으로
So, throughout the sessions that we have, that is the letter to a friend, it is apparent that it talks about the essential teaching here is about the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. And then we have seen that the Four Noble Truth has been explained again and again in this teaching in various methods, various ways, rather it be in the understanding of the eight limbs path or the three fundamental practices or attainment of the perfect view or the concentration, the practice of concentration, wisdom, and mindfulness. We see that at the end, all these teaching comes back to the understanding of the Four Noble Truth. That is, first understanding that the suffering, that the noble truth of suffering and willingness to abandon the suffering and to abandon the suffering, to understand that all these sufferings are not inherently existing, but they come from a cause, that there is a cause of the suffering. And then to understand that upon the abandonment of the cause of suffering, it arises some state called cessation. And then understanding that to attain that state of cessation, there is a path and progression. So throughout all these teachings sessions that we have, it is very important to recall and recollect the understanding of the Four Noble Truths through different views, whether it be from the eight limbs noble path, be it from the practice of the three fundamental practice, be it through the understanding of the 12 link dependent origination. It is important to recall the understanding of these things and then apply it to the further applied to the understanding of the Four Noble Truth, be it from the five path, the eight limb path, the three fundamental practice, 12 link dependent origination.
어다 대자 지난 전 드린 것도 저 마음 붙여 되나 대 맞아라 제다 시라 좀 봐서 사대 좀 안에 저 사바들 되게나 아 대네 쉬죠 다 봐서 갈 때, 먼저 들어가지 보나요 그때 세번 맞아봤다니나 가서 보다 되거든 근데 이건 디콜레 되거든요
So Geshe said that even though he intended to have a long question answer session, but it seemed that today on the session it just stretched down a little longer than he expected. But still, he said that from now he will take questions or doubts that may have arisen through the new session that we did today, or any doubt that pertains to the older session. So he said that he will be taking questions.
Go ahead, Diptila.
I have three questions. Perhaps Geshe can choose which he wants to address. One is about epigenetics and carried memory from previous generations. I'm curious whether there's anything in the Buddhist texts or Geshe-la's understanding on that. And the other thing is on non-concentration, he mentioned something about many minds. I'd appreciate some clarification perhaps on what he means by that. And perhaps what, what's carried, and then, and how it's carried. And then finally, neurodiversity, on trying to have better speech and understanding. Is there anything in the Buddhist understandings to help with that? So that's a lot, so I don't expect him to cover all of it. It's just putting it out there.
Can you repeat the final question?
Yeah, neurodiversity. So, there are obviously increasing in our, at least in the Western understanding, the idea that there's many people who have special needs and they process things differently. So their minds operate differently, whether it's the autistic spectrum or ADHD or other things. It might be outside of the context of the teachings at the moment.
라소 게실라 코란기 조스미요 라소 저기 저 통마디 조스미요 아니 디가 컨데 치다네 차잔 랭갸트나 또 항상 야부터데 아니 게실라 투제 메스나 질 대시 캐로 체슬라스로 저기 당부딩아 저기 코란기 단다 데레샤 리규기가 저기 다 저기 데 리규기 제지요로 저기 디나롱아 저기 지 수수기 리규기가 저기 내주든 저이 마 진지 파마네가 저 부고 포주다 데를 마 좋아 되나시 nga chiki kewan totu dina shinga chiki kewan ne kewala totu nga chiki shebachi ne nga chiki kewa chimal totu nga chiki chenshe shebati nga chiki sheba nga man sheba chimal tukure besla ti chwa thongma tere sha nga cho 아니 조언이버디 가르쳐라는가 저기 단다 띵에 진래 띵에 지간 계제 시험 동안 저기 로제 직발만에서나 저기 셈셰바딩아 저유 도마랑아 저기 파 섬로 담은다 코용 거래 슬로 망보지 샤용 거래 스케시 로 템포지 메스나 띵에 지 메스나 저기 공겨라 소백업성아 저기 로 망보지 샤용 거래 딜로 망보지 샤용 거래라는 저 가리라고 그랬을지 딜 세시나로 체스라스가 아니 타마디 칼라나 가지고 코란게 탄다디 뉴로다이버시티 라창아 저기 로깅아 저기 뉴발랑아 저기 케저 담아다이도 남균아 저 미규마기 삼로당당지다 아니가 저기 땡상기가 저 높초다 좀나 높초기가 저기 왕자 체리나로랑아 저기 탄다 디게지 나 저기 탄다 미카셰지라 직den기가 저 따초다 두셰지 만자여 버칭아 저 탄다 autism 라도 다 ADHD 라도 다 OCD la sobe nga chuki tentre ki samlo tangda mantra chiyore nga chuki nana nga chuki tanda autism la nga chuki miten so namgyu minta mantra wache jikden ki nga chuki chi dushe tang jikden di nga chuki tokchu ki nga chuki nupa mantra yo bachi yoro nga zo namgyu mitan tokdang chikpa ma yin bachi nga chuki tentre ki nga chuki mirik da mantra chi legyo pe namsha chiyore 코란기 주어 칼라는 디토랑아 저기 남바 상기 배추나 셰여를 뺐어 저기 미인바 강실라 직den기 또출랑아 저 뒤셰 만들어 왔다 또바 또당 만들어 왔어 또출 만들어 지어 봐 디 주어 숨바 디인슬스 코라
그래서 다 디바 양호시라도 디바 당보다 다 데려도 먼저게 템바데마 마 셈나 남신은 남제 마 도그를 해서 저거들도 다 치릭톤에 시원나 템바세 되네 레박 나로 네 왕자 치릭톤에 시원나 템바세 되 레박에 차셔지 나나 내가 쳇다보다 레박에 봐줘 달렌도 뉴로트랜스미터로 어딘데 도질 마도리 속된 메인백에 아니 쳐다 시고 말아 딱 안저게 기반 마트가 가서 네 계세게 템바세 바데 레벨 차셔지나 기반 침만 마트예요 농사요 말 아저나 속제 인바 속제 가도 단다 시대와데 속제 상만 마체로 속제 상만 뒤에도 마찬가지로 마도 군도 사용 기반 시베 가서 안에 속이 풍부히 차상만 안에 털고 봐 연도예요 말씀 기반 침만 다 돼서나 안에 시바 찍도 야는 누가 바자라 그러 시바진에 야는 누가 야나 시바네 시바라마 조여바데 안에 먼저게 나중에 시도 근데 다 계속 dim 많이 봐야 당만 내가 데이터 미팅 엄마한테 아니 두가지 됐어라 제가 한번에 영어를 세팅할 때 대본 미국 가서는 제가 한번 챙겨 믿을었어 근데 옛날에 내가 들라 저랑한테 저랑 게데 아메 코파네 영밖에 캘린 거였네 신거 열었어 아메 코파네 영 아니 아메 코파네 영가 저랑 비 아메 코파네 내주도 저랑 챙겨 믿었어 에테마다 저랑 로직 니야여도 밖에 내당에 제타제도 야연 수도 대 내당 챙겨도 있어 챙겨 믿었어 그래서 맞으면 좀 되나 배가 영어 말했으나 다다 대고 말했어 먼저 통도 이게 받쳐나데 대회장 소포가는 제사라 텐트고 말았어 total shiva na temba de yana nuba yana shiva ne shiva to yana shiva ne nuba ne shiva pa pacha so did 2 words tiwa tambun.
So Geshe just gave the answer to the first question. He said that according to neuroscience, when we talk about memories, they say that memories are something that are sort of like information that is transmitted through the neurons, something that is transmitted to the neurons, and it exists at a singular part of the brain. And then Geshe said that if that was the case, if we talk about, for example, if we talk about transmission of memories from one life to another, he said that if we just consider the neuroscientific understanding of memories, it seems that memories are something which are transmitted to neurons, most probably being electrical signals. He said that it is something that is a form, something that has form. And he said that if it's something that is form, it cannot be transmitted from one lifetime to another because it will disintegrate. So, according to the Buddhist understanding, we understand memories to be in the more active form, we call it a mind. In a more latent form, we call it impression. So when it is transmitted from one lifetime to another, it is transmitted either in the form of consciousness or mind, or it's transmitted in the form of impression. And when these impressions are being transmitted from one life to another, they may come into the active form as a mind if the circumstances are met. But if the circumstances are not met, even though they are transmitted, they may be just in the form of the latent form of impression. So Geshe said that once someone asked him this question, saying that if there is, for him, a person said that for him to accept the concept of afterlife and the next life is something that is very difficult because he cannot remember the previous life. So the answer to that question, Geshe said that, oh, in that case, do you remember your experience when you were in the womb of your mother? And then the person said no. And then Geshe said, do you remember the experience that you had when you were like 6 months, 1 years old? He said no. Then Geshe said, merely establishing existence of something on the account that someone can recall that memory is something that is a non-valid cognition. Because just because you can't remember does not validate the non-existence of something. So therefore, they may not be the memories as vivid as you want to see, but they still exist there as impressions. So therefore, the sort of memories that can travel from one lifetime to another, they mostly travel in impressions. But then when the circumstances are met, they will emerge as impression, they will emerge as mind, where you will recall these memories. Otherwise, most of the time they will be latent as impressions. So this is the answer to the first question.
Diga nanda chung jana tensa khasana nganje ke wa ma tense jara ta de ane jidan ge nupjo ge sengam re paji professor ji ma gomba la ma se de pedale de koran ke nimba sum le ma workshop de diga so kunjo ge khasana yangne ne yesam paji kunjo ge ta research da dinde ge chulu ge da shokji mejo ge 보고 de la pa do ne kunjo ke wa ma tenge de ma jila nyamshi chen dinde ge tenjo ge ta kunjo ge durup chen dinde ge 부 mambachiga dindega pamata dindega khan lapja mayina su de yawanga ma ten yawanga ma ge chala la so pa mila so pa ngje se wa de mambachi kun de tension kun zo ngone ya ta nupjo ge sengam bre ko to ne yawanga ma yoga chi kun zo shege to.
So, in addition to this, Geshe said that when he was back when he was at the monastery, he said that at that time, a few researchers from England they came and they did some few researchers. Mainly, they were Western psychologists. They came and then they sort of like uh, they did research on children who belong to non-religious families. And then out of the research, the sort of like the group of children that they had done research upon, they found that few of them were able to recall things that were not being told to them by their parents, which were related to their past life. So it points towards the sort of like the transmission of the memories from one life to another, be it in impression or be it in mind or consciousness.
이제 다 주변이와 대해서나 띵이들이 매와이나 안에 시와도 요리 죽두고 말해서 근데 들어.
Lao daga dangde.
어.
이 띵이지 디 메소나 아니 nga 저기 유도 마주 제가 저로 도마 샤고 오레스 로 만다 망보 샤고 오레스 로디 샤투 칸데데스.
어다 지당에 간 저기 띵이지 세주라. 띵이지 세디 안에 지당에 셈게 되지래. 심중치. 조셈게 코도 종대베 안에 심중 띵이지 세 심중치 버렸어. 심중 되게 저거데 시랍 되니 저거 조셈 되니 요지라 내가 챙게 그걸 내가 치고 있어. 요지를 내가 챙게 내가 치고 있어. 다 계속 띵이지 템보 매봐 있나? 조셈 되니 아니 가사가라 쳐더니 밑받치를 내미도 봐. 근데 저도 되네 다 미유 소저 미유 송아 나신게 매종하자 안에 삼록 심바 용기도 템바라 셈로 담는다 페나 밑받에 그 꾸지를 밑받에 되어이나 다 꾸들 밑받에 돼 조셈 되게 띵이 템보 매와나 띵 마용가 되신 바다 메다 삼록 나콘 셈도 가사가라 줘도 어디에 용거스 템바레스
So the answer to the second question, so we must understand that the concentration or the understanding of the single-pointed mind is one of the faculty of the mind, and the function of this faculty of the mind is to focus on the primary focus or the primary target of the mind or the focus of the primary mind. So what happens is that when one doesn't possess this faculty of mind, their mind tries to focus on the primary focus, but as they do not possess this single-pointed mind or concentration, what happens is that their mind is unable to strongly grip to that focus. And as they are unable to strongly grip to that focus, be it the target of focus being an idol of the Buddha, so their primary mind is focusing on the idol of the Buddha. But because they do not possess this faculty of mind, what happens is that all those secondary mind, that is not the focus of the primary mind, they tend to overpower. Because what happens is that the primary mind wants to focus on the idol, but the secondary mind, which are coming, are influencing it because the mind that is focusing on the idol does not possess the faculty called the single-pointed mind. So that is how many different minds arises at that particular point because the focus is not being able to established.
이제 다 시와 담아들어 또 뒤도 시와나 지단 그 미카시에게 다 지대나 따당데 면다데 연구해서나 다데 지대게 뭐였냐죠 또요 토네 시와나 먼저게 학바게 다양 법에 강사로서 같은 적이 지대내로 또 당로 같이 열었어 데 마인베 야 지단게 다 미카시에게 다 지대내로 디데디데서 대세 담을 장게 열어 다디 뭐였냐죠 힘만이 상관도 신다 다야랬어 지대내당 디데디데데 다 대세 소소소 그 섬도 dinday xie ne tem nang la so kha sa khal tam me yo ra ta na nga me sha sha wa na je den na ne te te kham ne dang de xie jang ge ma ba shu chung wa ta tam ben da o dinday do ina ne yo ra sa ina da ngoi na zu de ta phak ba khang sa lo so che de pa ba den je da ba de ngoi na zu na do wa na nga zu khe no de ma yin ba xie ba zam na ta dam me de ne da nga zu kha ra yang da wa yin da me se de ane da che chen ba xie je des.
So the answer to the last question, the neurodiversity, talking about the people who are autistic or ADHD, or sort of people who have a perception of the reality quite different from how we perceive it. So Geshe said that when we talk about this very concept of the perception of reality, we find that there are beings, sublime beings such as the Aryas and the Arahats, who are able to see more profoundly what the reality is than what we are perceiving. And then to establish that the reality that is perceived should be in this way is an argument which is quite subjective, depending on one's own subjective experience. And then establishing it to be sort of like the absolute is an absurdity because different people in different field, different philosophy, they will establish a different understanding of what reality should be and how we should perceive it and how one perception is normal and rest is not normal. But in reality, what is known as the sort of the excellent perception or the perception of the truth is when one analyzes one's own perception of reality and then cut through all of the conventionality and then reaches to the ultimate reality. That is known as the ultimate truth. And that is when we perceive the reality as it is. But in other way, when we talk about the conventionality, it is usually subjected to subjective experience. And then even in Buddhism, it depends on subjective observation. But when we talk about what is the actual perception of the reality, it should come down to understanding of the ultimate truth.
Thank you.
Lasso, Geshe la thujana lasso. Geshe said that now he has time for one more question. If anyone has one more question, he can take one more question. And then we can call it a day.
Yes, Nikila, go ahead. Unmute. You are not audible, Nikila. You're still not audible. Maybe you can type or let us know how can we help you to put the question. I think Nikki is typing her questions. This is what I understand. Meanwhile, Geshe, if you have to say something. I would like to say something then that all those who wish to send the donations as a Guru Dakshina, please go ahead and donate on our center's scan code and Google Pay number. I will be posting it in the group for all those who don't have those details for donation.
Thanks, Nikki is tapping. So before dedication prayer, I would like to say something in English. So today's is last session this year. So this year teaching session is completed very successful because of all of you, especially translator. Tenzin Lapala is very, very skillful translator. So teaching is become very meaningful. So therefore, Tenzin Lapala, I would like to say thank you so much, Tenzin Lapala. You very, very wonderful translations. So also Minalena Ji also teaching coordinator. So she also every session she effort to coordinate this teaching. So therefore I would like to say thank you so much, Minalena Ji, and all of you. So attend this year's teaching session. So I'm very, very rejoice all of you. Also thank you for your attendance. Also, next year also, you are welcome to attend our online session.
Nikki ji, are you able to unmute or do you want to type your question?
I could see Nikki's typing, and she's basically saying she doesn't have a question, but she wants to say thank you to Geshe Lobsang, and I think she speaks for us all. It's been really enlightening teaching, and the depth of Geshe Lobsang's knowledge is really precious. So thank you.
Geshe-la, tanda Nikki-la phorang thuwa me-la sura. Ani, ta chinda nipa-ne gozu je ta tate lochi tina nga tsuki tendre chi so tsuwa di kati shindu che la so. An tendre ne nga tsuki lo kya tang yunden shivu chi ra sons. Ani, Geshe-la ki nga tsuki ta tu tsewa nying chi chenpo ki kone nga tsu tendre chi kukab chi nangpa tila kati shindu che la chi. Ta te songi yisla.
If there is no question, then Geshe-la, I have a question if we have time.
Okay, sure.
This is regarding verse 113 about the three principle. I don't remember what you said, but the three principle something. So my question is, in our day-to-day life, like we have a situation at office with a difficult boss or at home, how should we see those things which are mentioned in that verse? If Tenzin Lakpala, if you can put forth that 113 verse, if it is feasible, then you please
Di
put it.
Geshe-la di screen sharing chiro che. Tanda kya da chokson pa di.
Mm.
113. Yes. Perfect view and livelihood with efforts, mindfulness and concentration, perfect speech and conduct, perfect thought, the path's 8 limbs to find true peace. Please meditate on this. So in our day-to-day life, when any situation arises, these all factors, what are written, they come into play. It's not that they're separate. They all of them come together, right, Kesala? And then how we can, put that situation in these 8 things what are mentioned. If my question is not clear, then I will give a live example.
Geshe-la Khurāngi tuwa khatashna na ngā tsuki tukyungi tsoe tuela ngā tsuki ta namgyun ngā tsuki metsen na kanyo tamata chego res ngā tsu penchashna lega chesa la jinda yaku meba ta ani nang la ngā tsuki naumi yaku meba tenrengi kanyi tenre mangpush chego res an tanda ngā tsuki di tsikche gyat chokson pa tina lo la ngā tsuki tanda yang tabe tawa ne cheche ani thama tele yang tabe tokpa pa to ngā tsuki ta phalam yena ge di sheshas 아니 nga zu mitse nanglo tenze ki phalam yela ge ki nyamnen ti nga zu ki khande chi kyu kores nga zu ki phalam yela ge ki nyamnen ti nga zu ki phata su na khurang ki samtang da ches na nga zu ki phalam yela ge ki nga zu ki yela re re ti nga zu ki mitse ki chasha la te ba ina nga zu ki chi chera ba chi yung ko wa tros chog men dos den so ma pen zu de wa chi dos nga zu ki chi den re shas nga zu ki an cha zang cha la le nya da che dos tenze chi yin ba ina nga tsuki phalam yena ge di nga tsuki tel tens na nga tsu phalam yena ge di nga tsuki mitse ki chasha khande chi ches na telak nga tsuki choye chwe to nga tsuki ta kanyi dendre che tu ani dendre ki nyamlen de su nyam tsu len tang chi tang nga tsuki samlo tang tang di khande che go res la chi de khorang ki chwe re sha
그래서 다 되어 야고시라도 다 팔라이라 제데 미데 니레 주베토도 컨데스다 남네 냠네 치고 그래서 다디 개좀 보시라래서 디 진에 정말 미나라나지 소원을 직질을 받던 것도 열었다 답변사전은 완전 미망고 쇼지다. 내래 주베도 아니. 강아요. 진짜 모연해서다. 대체자고 리바타나 쇼치고 요마다. 뭐지 냠스 용대. 능미 때는 강아요래. 다가는 지금 내가 제살라요. 내가 지금 강아. 약간 왜 진지. 딘데를 쏘고 능미나라 약간 왜 진지. 강아 뭐지 요한테 딱 모연해서. 다 된저인데 강아한테 간데 강아한테 가르도. 소소한 거 써줘야 돼. 간다도 중도. 강아한테 주진 자체가 뭐 때는 양다 따와 해줬다. 강한테 칼레도 뭐네 좀 엄마한테 강한테 칼레도 강한테 주제 칼레도 양한테 따와 해줬다 보다 싫어 해줬다 강한테 엄마한테 제제 캐좀 줘 강한 엄마 제제 제일 안데 강한테 네 제 답람도 도나 제마다 여가자 하거나 답람도 좀막 제야를 배제줘 다 준비 양다가 준비 써 때는 신기 강한테 좀 써보다 야 강한테 수수에 써봐 다 팀만 용단을 써봐라 전반이 잘 써봐다 된적이다 아니 강한 수수 깨쳤던 시험에 수수 깨쳤 시간 약보면 더 시험에 양다가 맞은데 막 약보시에 써봐다 수수를 용한 건데 약보시면 나 뒤쪽에 다니는 써봐다 강한 표적이 신발시에 신발을 봐 대셔야 돼 그저 용한 군주 주가 다니는 써봐 남배도를 뛰어라.但是 내가 지금 보스로 된도 있는 조생원을 죽었다. 카보이도 되네. 다 내한테 뭐마 됐다 주네. 영상 말에 썸다 있는 또 딜럽바에 한 소소 썸을 집었다네. 가르쳐 버려. 어떤 정말 되가 이거.
So Geshe said that what you have said is the fact that all these eight limbs part are definitely interdependent and interlinked with each other, that they don't come separately. And that is the fact. And so definitely each, and it does not take like a superior insight to understand that every one of us face different type of suffering and difficulties in our life, and every one of us in certain way are suffering in our life. And it doesn't take a superior insight to understand this fact, be it in our family setting, be it in our workplace where we have like a very abusive boss. So therefore, these eight limbs practice come into the play in a way such that first, the kind of suffering that we are experiencing either in the home or workplace, we must first analyze to see what is the cause of the suffering. How are they emerging? Are these suffering emerging by themselves? Are they self-emerging suffering? To see if it is inherent or it's non-inherent. And if it's non-inherent, to see what is the cause of the suffering? What is the nature of the suffering? And in this time, the perfect view comes into the play, where it dissects the suffering that we are trying to see and see the true nature of that suffering and the extent of that suffering. And then afterwards, if we see that it is caused by something, to see, then to search for the solution of the suffering. And in this time, the perfect effort comes into play, where we consistently work in trying to find the solution. And then as we apply to finding the solution of the suffering, then concentration and mindfulness comes into play, where we need to be mindful about every single thing that we are doing, every single thing that we are experiencing. And then we must be able to have a great focus on seeing what is causing this, what is the cause of this, why am I suffering in this way? And then sometimes it may be because we don't use particularly good speech. Maybe we are not very kind to the other person, and we always tend to speak to them without much empathy, without much compassion. In that case, we should practice the perfect speech to speak to them in more gentle way, to speak to them with empathy and compassion, trying to understand their situation and then to speak accordingly. And then if it's due to certain physical, like certain thing because of our body or the way we perceive them, then we should practice of the perfect conduct. We must not do any harm to them. We must act in a way that we appear to be safe to them. In that way, we must conduct our body, speech, and mind. And then we see that after incorporating all of these things, we see that we may be able to find solution. But then in certain thing, then we might also have the realization. We see like, oh, I'm working in this place, and then my boss is very abusive, and my boss is abusive without any reason. And then there's nothing that I can do by incorporating these 8 that I can change the way my boss is treating me. In that case, we should take the step to change it in other ways. We should take the next step that we may see that the problem is the boss, and then how should we be able to be free from that suffering? So therefore, this is the way how we can incorporate all of these 8 limbs path in our daily life.
This is very, very helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
내가 제가 보스라 주바된 디스레라도 내가 제 제보직 받아 지라요 막 낭미되는 때 딜라가 칼라카도 나머지 딜레 제가 숙제라다 이제는 다 딜라 삼로 삽사시고다는 간다를 적어도 삼로 받대 거라다 딩사부 시고다는 타도 제르마도 내가 대에는 내가 좀 받잖아다 내가 쓰거라 낭미세데 딜레 아니 딩사가 대바다 뭐 딩도 다 딜라 간대 적어도 딩사부터는 아니 삼부터 이제 해주고 싶어 간대야.
So when it comes to a boss and like work, it seems that it's more easier solution. Like if you see that the boss is the problem, you just change your workplace, you just change your job. But when it comes to family, it comes to a more intimate, more profound, and a more deeper relation. And at that time, it is not easy to just abandon the person. So in that case, all of these practices should be taken in consideration, and it should be practiced in a more deeper level, so that at the end you might find the solution that is precisely the solution for your situation, rather than being hasty on these. So in the comparison, the workplace is less of a sort of like, it becomes more less significant than a family member. So therefore, the profundity and the depth of the practice also changes in comparison. When it comes to a situation in family, all of these practices should be applied, but in a more deeper level. When it comes to work, they are applied, but in comparison, it is.
Thank you so much. We lost your last sentence, Tenzin Lakpala, when you said just the last sentence.
Okay, so I hope I'm audible
Yes,
now.
yes, you are.
So Geshe said that, so in comparison to family, a work is less deeper connection. So therefore, when we apply these 8 limb practices in the family situation, it should be in a more deeper level, in a more profound level. And the decision should be made with a great sort of like, after a great consideration. But in case of the work, it is less significant in terms of relation. So the practice in comparison would be more surface.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, sorry we have crossed time, but this was very helpful. Thank you. Please join me for the dedication prayers. And once again, thank you everyone, Geshe Tenzin Lakpala and everyone. I'll try to share my screen. Okay. I'm audible, right? Yeah. Dedication prayers from Shantideva's way of the Bodhisattva. May all beings everywhere plagued by suffering of body and mind obtain the ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or even fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you, everyone, once again. And please consider donating to our center. The details are given. Thank you so much. Thank you, Geshe Lobsang Tenzin Lakpala, and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tindapada.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Islam. Thank you, Tenzin Lakpala. Thank you, Mirani Jiji, everything.
Welcome.
Everybody, thank you.